Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk about the Market Live session. So the Nifty Index did try to break into the green, but after that we saw correction from higher levels. In fact, actually today the broader market is getting sold off more. So let's talk about it and let's see what is happening. Let me quickly share my screen. Now, someone please confirm if you can see my screen and you can hear me properly. I'll just get the mic near me. Okay. So, are you able to see my screen and are you able to hear me properly? Please, type a message. Okay. Thanks, Sagar, for the confirmation. So let's quickly jump to what is happening in the Nifty index. And this is something we spoke about yesterday as well, that Nifty sustaining below the 40-hour exponential average. This leads to maybe some more correction, and possibly the Nifty index could be forming some sort of falling wedge pattern. Okay, something like this. And this now I'm noticing it is happening across the indices. So you can see over here, I mean, this can possibly be one, falling wedge pattern. Also, if you see the RSI, I think we should be able to see some positive divergence as well. So, okay, not so far. There was a bit of a positive divergence. No, in fact, even we can't call this as positive divergence. So we haven't developed a positive divergence yet. But yeah, I mean, we need to watch this. But as I mentioned, I mean, this is happening all across the index. And remember, we spoke about this yesterday, that on the weekly chart, the 20-week average is still not tested. Okay. So if I zoom in a bit, the 20-week average is at 24,506, and if we see this hourly support of the falling wedge, that is also somewhere around 24,500. Okay, so that can be the potential level to watch out for in the near term, from where ideally some sort of sustainable pullback should come into play. I mean, not just this 1 or 2 days kind of pullback, but a lot more durable pullback. In fact, even if you see the Nifty mid cap 100, now, as I was mentioning to you, I mean, I'm starting to see these sort of patterns across. So over here also, what was pending was that 20-week average ka retest. Uh, so it is at 56,019. Right now, it is 56,019 is the 20-week level, and right now it is at 56,561. So it is still 1% away from the current level. Small cap is nearly there, and actually the wedge pattern is not visible over here. But if you see the small cap index, I think I'd seen it over there. So over here, if we see the small cap, it is almost there, right? So the 20-week average is 17,526, and currently it is at 17,640. So it is like just 100 point away from the current levels, roughly 100 points. Now, if you see the hourly chart over here, okay, this is not like a very perfect wedge, but a bit of a narrowing pattern that is visible. So this actually more or less looks like a channel only. Nifty 500. So over here, bit of a wedge formation is visible. So this is where we stand at this point of time, wherein there is a scope of some more, say 0.5% or so downside that could be pending. And even over here, if we see the weekly averages, which is say somewhere around 20, so 22,487, and the price over here which is getting traded currently is 22,641. So it is again 100 150 point, which is like 0.5%, 0.6% away from the current levels. And one thing that I was mentioning earlier as well, that I was checking when was it that we had got a correction which lasted for more than 3 to 4 weeks. So one thing that I saw was somewhere over here, which I mentioned, one, two, three, four, and five, and then after we saw an up move. Even the Ukraine Russia war, when it broke out, one, two, three, four, and fifth, and then there was an up move over there. So if you see right now, this is probably the sixth week that we are into a corrective mode, right? One, two, three, four, five. So that is why, I mean, if you just go and check the history, after COVID, I think these two were the only times where we had seen 5 weeks of down move. Okay. Otherwise, after that, we have at least got a pullback. So even in this case, if you see the pullback, this would be almost 1,000 point kind of recovery that we had seen from the low. Uh, so this is where we stand, and I think uh, you know at some point we should be able to get a reversal. And now, because this low is there, I was even checking the 61.8% the other day, assuming if this was the low. So even the 61.8% level now comes to around 25 250. So basically 25 250 now becomes a very important resistance level to watch out for from a medium term perspective. But as and when a bounce occurs, okay, that is the level that we would be watching out for very closely on the upside. Okay. um, and what are the levels where you start anticipating that a correction could be complete? So it would be firstly be the 40-hour exponential average, sorry, which is over here, the 40-hour exponential break, and a break above the previous high. So this would also negate the lower top, lower bottom formation, which the Nifty index has been forming, right? So these two will be the levels to initially check it. To initially see if we are breaking and sustaining above that. Once that happens, then you can start expecting a move towards 24,950. Then, as I mentioned, there are almost at every 100 150 point, we will be having resistance until 25 250 levels. Okay. So now, where the question may arise, that are we headed towards a deeper correction, and can we sort of pull back and get over here? The answer is yes, that is possible. But how high is the probability of that happening? Frankly, I would assign a low probability of that happening. That is because when we look at the sentiment data, and as I have been repeatedly mentioning, and the reason to talk about it almost every day is so that you understand how it behaves. Okay. So FIIs have been continuously shorting, and their short positions are now almost back to so over here, prior to the expiry, it was minus 173, 1,73,000 contract. Now it is 1,68. But if you see the percentage long, it has now fallen to 8%. Uh, Usually it it may not sustain for a very long time. Okay. You can see this in the past as well. So the parallel that I was drawing to for this correction is very much to this. So over here, actually, the correction was a lot more deeper, but here also you can see that this the percentage long had come on 8th of March. Okay. And it sustained for 10 around 10 days or so on the downside. So we did ended up seeing some correction, but after that, eventually it rose higher. So honestly, to me, this looks more like a waiting game to I mean, to guess a reversal, because sometimes what happens is that when you're anticipating a pullback that doesn't happen, you eventually end up giving up that thought and think that now the Nifty index is gonna fall. But that's where these data points help you to be a little more rational. So see, what happens is that maybe you may feel bad that you are not able to capture the downside and so on. But when the levels are so depressed, frankly, shorting in such conditions can also be deadly, because whenever the pullback happens, I mean, we have seen time and again, I mean, they are very swift, and before you blink your eye, it might take a lot of money away from you. So that's where, if you see the breath is also towards that oversold zone. So typically, if the breath goes to as bad as the second level over here, then you can say that it is now extremely oversold. So right now, we can say that it is oversold, but not to a great extent. But I'm guessing that because today the breadth is not that great, and the small and the mid caps are getting hammered, uh, maybe we end up getting some lower reading as well. And as these indices progress towards the 20-week average, probably that's where we might also end up getting some oversold readings on the breadth as well. Okay, so that is what I will be watching out for. Even in that process, if the swing goes back again to the oversold zone, or at a little higher level, what it might end up throwing is a positive divergence over here. So yes, I mean, the thing is that in the past couple of days, the it has been a slow grind, and probably a little more mentally challenging, because while the Nifty might be falling a bit, there are stocks which are not doing well. And as I was mentioning earlier as well, so when I was looking at the indices, there are some which look good, but there are some that even looks bad. Okay, so for example, let me just show you the list of indices and what I'm observing in many of them. Should I deleted the indices? I think RRG indices. Hmm. Okay, never mind. Let me just create those indices. Let's see, indices. So we'll talk more of what is happening in the specific index. So let me just make it a broader screen. Okay. So over here, if you see Bank Nifty, it is now actually coming towards that important support level as well, which was of this low. Okay, it is almost reaching there. Even if you see the weekly, it is very much closer to that level. So if you see all the index, they are now sort of retesting the 20-week average, which ideally should act as a very, very important support level in the near term. So, we of course need to see whether this holds or no. If the 20-week doesn't hold, then that is surely a cause of concern. But I think the way the sentiment readings are, even if it has to get worse, at least there will be a bounce, and maybe then it might get worse. So that is what my reading says. So let's see how this evolves. But if you see Bank Nifty, it is coming over there. But there are some concerning trends that I'm seeing in few of the index. So say for example, pharma. Okay, in pharma, we are getting a bearish crossover, but on daily chart, it had broken below the 40-day, couple of days back, and now it is falling. And also, many trend line supports and all were broken over here. Okay. So this is one index that is not good. And I think if the averages breaks over here, this can be bad. That is because mainly I was checking the stocks internally as well. Many of the stocks do have a lot of divergence. So say for example something like DV's lab. DV's lab is on the verge of breaking the 20-week average, and there has been uh, meaningful divergence seen on the monthly chart as well. You can see over here on the monthly chart there's a nice typical divergence that we see, so that is there. Then even Sun Pharma, I was checking, I mean, it is sort of on the verge of breaking the 20-week. So whenever the 20-week breaks, it leads to a decline probably towards 40 as well, over a period of time. So it can happen that it can consolidate over here, and in that sense maybe the averages move higher, and the fall might look less bigger from this point. But this is one. In fact, even if you see Dr. Reddy, within that, so over here also 20-week is broken, and here we still haven't seen a sell signal. Okay, so this is the monthly that I'm talking about, but on the weekly chart, all the key averages are broken. So now this leaves a scope of a correction probably till here. So basic my basic point was that when I was checking all the internals of the pharma index, while pharma index was sort of holding out the averages, but inside that many of the stocks are breaking down, so that is not a good sign. The other one was reality. On the weekly chart, all the key averages are broken on the downside, and that is also again not a good sign. PSC, again, that seems to be happening. Need to closely monitor this, what happens. PSU banks, it is near to this zone, but again I will be very watchful of this. The reason, because it has retraced exact 61.8% of the entire decline, right? If you see this retracement zone is nothing but the 61.8% retracement zone. So even this I'll be watching very closely. The other one which was there was, I don't recall, but I think these were two, three index where they look specifically concerning. Mm, yeah, I think these were the index mainly that were looking concerning. The index where I would be very watchful, to see for some positive signal is autos, because they are sideways consolidating. If you see IT, as I've already told you, I mean, it is very much oversold, especially on the daily chart, and all the stocks have huge shorting, and it is at the 61.8% retracement of the previous move. Okay, even when you see the monthly chart, it is at the 40-month average now once again. Okay, last time it held on a closing basis, now we are again coming back over there. So this is particularly one index that I hope that there could be some revival that we can see. It is also because when you see the USD INR, I don't know many of the, I mean, how many of the people might have noticed this, but USD INR is almost back its all-time high. Probably that is also one of the reasons why market is sort of selling off, and there is some nervousness. But yes, I mean, this is also another observation, that it is almost coming back to the high. So that is why, I mean, I feel that at some point of time IT kind of will make a comeback. FMCG also, it has been consolidating over here. So need to see whether this picks up or no. And I'd already mentioned for quite some time now that for possibly this inverse HNS that has been forming over here. Uh, so yeah, I think broadly that's about it. So pharma, reality, and all the PSU stocks, that's where a little bit of concern is in the near term. Auto, FMCG, IT is where I would be watching very closely if we get some revival. Even in the Nifty metal also, it had broken this lower top, lower bottom structure on the weekly chart. So over there also, the setup is interesting. So broadly, that is what is there at this point of time to discuss. Watch out for this week. I think by this week all the indices, which where the 20-week moving average is pending, okay, to get touched, I think it might end up touching that. And when that happens, many of the readings might once again get to the oversold zone, or we might end up getting positive divergence over there. And I think that's where the setup can then become interesting. Now, whether that leads to a medium term bottom or just a bounce is something we'll be watchful of. But that is what the expectation is. And there is one more thing that I just want to mention, is that for the next uh, 2 to 3 days, I won't be actually available. So probably from next week onwards, we'll once again restart it. So for some personal reasons, I will not be available. But from next week onwards, we will get started with the live sessions. Okay. So I think these were all the observations that I had. If there is anything that you all have to add, or you all have to ask, happy to answer it. So any questions, you can let me know. I'll be able to address it. So in fact, in IT, as I'm seeing, again the shorts are getting built. It's a long unwinding year. Okay, so any questions? You can please let us know if there is any doubt that you'll have about strike as well. I can help you to make understand how do we think about those screens. Okay, we'll wait for a minute. If there is nothing, then we can probably end this session. Okay, I don't see any questions coming. So let's meet up next week. So as I mentioned, I'm just repeating once again. For next 2 to 3 days, I will not be there. But from next week onwards, we should be restarting this. So once again, thanks a lot for joining. And let's catch up next week, and let's see if we start getting a if we start getting this clear trend. I think there is one question from Mahesh regarding. Yeah, sure, Mahesh, please let me know what is the question. So I'm waiting for a minute for you to type it. Net futures. Last Feb to March, FI index position was at a low. Okay, let me just open it. Now, can we expect it? So, Mahesh, see, this is what I was trying to say, that even if you see over here, okay, it sustained for a while. Like it came to that oversold zone even in March 10. I don't know what is the thing with with March, but usually we end up seeing these patterns, somehow in the March only. So over here as well, if you see that around this March April level, there was this correction. But anyways, the point is that sometimes it does end up being in an oversold zone. So that's where we actually need to wait for a trend reversal, right? So that's why I have been consistently telling you that these readings have been in oversold zone, but as long as the reversal does not happen, there is a possibility that they might keep shorting. But at some point of time, the position will reach an extreme, and they will have to start unwinding it, because market cannot go down without any significant pullbacks, right? I mean, each time we will see there have been significant pullbacks, but if you see over here, there hasn't been any sustainable pullback, apart from getting 1 or 2 days pullback, right? So at some point of time, you even see over here, while we were in a downtrend also, okay, if you see from here to here, we ended up getting 1,000 point kind of up move, right, from year to year, and then it again sold off. So what I was saying was this only, that even if it has to sell off further, we will at least get a bounce. So now the way to think about it is that in the medium term, if this resistance zone is not broken, okay, and if we see the reading, say in the short covering, basically if we end up seeing the reading which is out of this this two lines, so then what will happen is that it will create a room for another leg of decline, and where they can again start shorting. So that room will be created basically. But if at all this price action, I mean, this zone is broken on the upside, right, then I would expect that their positioning should go to the other extreme, because usually we have seen it that when they go to one extreme, they eventually go to the other extreme as well. Sometimes there can be this seesawing that we can see, like you can see over here, okay. यहाँ पे the expectation was that it will eventually go to oversold, but we got this in the interim, and then eventually at the election day low it went to the oversold zone. So right now also what is happening is that it is kind of whipsawing. But my frankly my expectation will be that at some point of time we get to this extreme, because if you actually see, so since October, there was only 1 or 2 days where they got into the net buy position, okay. Other than that, they were literally shorting left, right, and center. Like you can see over here, it was only in May for a day or two, they had become net long. But other than that, and that net long was also due to the up move that we have seen. But from this phase onwards, they have again started shorting, and in this pullback there was some short covering, but now again their positioning has reached an extreme. And the way to think about this is also that despite so much of shorting, they haven't been able to break this low as well, right? So what happens if the short covering comes, then we might sort of end up getting new uh, up move. That is what I would be expecting. But as I mentioned, if there is a pullback towards this, we will reassess how are all the sentiment indicators placed, and we'll take a view from there. But just to think that the market will keep falling like that over here, and it will keep going down despite such oversold conditions, is honestly very hard to digest. these things can only happen if there is some sort of a black swan event, where that happens. And that's why I mentioned the cutoff level as well, which is this support zone, right? If the Nifty index starts sustaining below this, okay, if it breaks and starts sustaining below this, then I'll be worried. Then maybe these sentiment indicators or their extreme short positions are a precursor to something that might be happening. I mean, whether it happens or not, that we don't know. But then at least if this support breaks and the Nifty index sustains below that, then there is a risk of things getting bad or worst as well. But as long as this support is held, okay, we would think of it this way, that the bearishness is happening too much, and sooner or later a revival is in place. That is because none of the important medium term support levels are broken on the downside. So that is what we are thinking about this at this point. Okay. Sagar says that some OI insights work very good. It hit my sell down mode. What can I do to make it better? So, Sagar, see, now I'll give you an example. Okay, I mean, you have to understand what the trend is. Now, see, we briefly mentioned that pharma, then reality is sort of not looking good, right? So when we go to the strike OI insights, so let us see. Okay, let's analyze couple of stock just to give you those concepts. Now, see, you can see that these are the stocks. I mean, I was just trying to see the stocks which are near resistance and so on. So यहाँ पे in fact I am not getting any of those stocks from that sector. In fact, the stocks which are strong, these are the only ones which are near resistance. So like I mentioned, I mean, FMCG is one, then metals, uh, then cement. So all these are the ones which are near the resistance. So that's where, now if I do say which are the stocks which are near support or below support, okay, and here I have to do the OI change negative. So these are all the places where the stocks are either near support or below support. But sorry, in put we have to do, but these are the stocks where the put writers are now getting nervous, right? So they are now getting nervous, and that's why they seems to be unwinding their position. So that is where the clue will be. Now you mentioned that how can you do it better. The idea would be to then check what each of the stocks are doing. So say for example, say something like Astral. Okay, let's take Astral. 1400 is unwinding, but there is some addition that is happening in 250, I mean in 1380. So this doesn't leave much room on the downside. But yes, considering that it is at 1420, even move till now, see, now the data got refreshed, and now actually the positioning is at 1320. So say for example Astral, right? यहाँ पे unwinding is happening. People are already getting nervous. So what I would tend to do is that, let me make a duplicate tab. Okay. Now, see, you can do the time horizon that you are comfortable with. Okay. But typically, these all actions can last for a few days, is what I have seen. I mean, one day to, probably 3 4 days, but maybe not beyond that. Okay. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. So, say, for example, if I see Astral, now I do the trade setup that we usually look at. So over here now, see, the daily RMI is actually getting into the bullish zone. It has not seen a crossover yet. But on the hourly chart, let me see if, huh. Now see, this is trading below its important support, right? So maybe, on this pullback that we are getting right now, maybe you want to keep this minor stop loss over here, and try to think of a short position. That is because the unwinding is happening, and the expectation would be that, sorry, just give me a minute. Okay. So the expectation would be that this is, kind of a bear flag that could be happening, and the stock may again break on the downside. So that is what, the strike Y insight seems to be suggesting, or that is what the data of options seems to be suggesting, okay, for Astral. So that is how, you can go and search for the stocks and see how it does. But basically, to your question, a combination of data plus your analysis will be really helpful for you to, improve it. And look out for the places where there is a double digit OI reduction. Okay, that's where, it starts. We start feeling that the put shorters are very nervous and they think that the market is gonna go down. Okay. Yeah, Mahesh. So this year, correct. So that is what I was saying, that you have to wait for it, for the trend reversal to happen. Okay, like for example, if you see over here, okay, so over here, if we end up getting this break of the zone with a gap, so something breaking out with a gap is, I view it typically as very bullish. And also, if you then combine with the momentum indicators as well, right? So each time when the sentiments are in extreme oversold zone, but the RMI is then turning bullish, okay, then I'll be very watchful of a reversal. So say for example, over here the prices are breaking away with a gap and there is a bullish crossover over here, then I'll be very watchful that a turnaround can happen. In fact, over here as well, when the sentiments were very bearish, so I remember somewhere over here, there was a triangle formation that sort of happened. Okay, there was this triangle formation that was happening, and we were in an oversold zone. So when multiple things starts converging, which means, you have ended up seeing a triangular breakout, then there is a bullish crossover on the daily chart. Okay, so bullish crossover had happened over here only, but after that there was this consolidation and it is moving here. And then, in addition to that, when the sentiment indicators are in oversold zone, so then you start expecting a rally. In fact, over here also, if you see the rally, I think it was almost around 8 to 10% or so. If you see the rally from year to year, it was almost a 2,000 point kind of rally, which was almost around 8.5%. And I remember that, we were then a little bit cautious, uh, and thought that maybe the decline might not be over, because one, the previous high was not breached, and the second was, if you plot the moving average, okay, so just when the Trump announced those tariff and we fell hard, at that point of time, just a day prior, the 20-day was broken, and there was a bearish crossover also which was there. So I'm talking about this 4th April. So what we were anticipating is that there will be a pullback and then an up move, right? But when the 40-day broke, I'm not sure if we are able to plot Rohit momentum over here. So when the 40-day broke and there was this bearish crossover that was also there, so then we started, thinking that is there a bit more downside that is left. So on that day, the very next day that Trump tariff came, which eventually led to a bottom. So ideally, the expectation was that Nifty could be sort of forming, was in a channel. So somewhere towards the lower end was actually what we were anticipating. I think if I'm not wrong, I I had drawn a channel like this. Okay. And I was thinking that maybe the decline would come to 21,500 or so, or maybe even the election day low might get tested, which was of 21,280. But there was a reversal. And then eventually, when we ended up getting reversal in the form of breaking above the averages, trend line, and a crossover, so that's where then we again started anticipating that the next leg of short covering may start. So, this is definitely testing our patience. But, I mean, I have seen this data for a long time now. Uh, I can say one thing for sure, that whenever I have tried to go against the data and think, hey, boss, this time actually things are bad and it might fall apart. I mean, I have always been disappointed, and I've always been wrong. So with experience, I'm telling you this, that whenever I've gone against all this sentiment data, uh, you know it hasn't been very much rewarding for me. Maybe one of the times it has worked out, but not every time. Okay, I mean, the success rate of the sentiment eventually unfolding in a bullish mood is lot more than the chances of it failing. As I mentioned earlier, if there is some sort of black swan event that is going to happen, then these indicators might not work. Okay, then it might continue to remain in that oversold zone. But that is the thing that we need to see, whether those black swan event will come or no. At this point of time, then what I try to think is that how can a black swan event happen? Yeah, if I see the dollar index, it is still very weak, and there are basically no sign of it showing strength, that it can go to 115, sort of levels. So that is where, I mean, that is one point where it does not show me that there is a panic, right? If you see the US yields, I mean, 2 year, 10 year, whatever you see, right, the yields have been falling. So interest rate scares, even that is not happening. Even if you see for India 10 year, the yields are more or less in a declining trend only. So then I'm trying to think from where the panic might come, and at this point of time I'm not getting any of those indications. So that's where I'm sort of hopeful that at some point of time we end up getting a reversal. Now, the only thing that, as I am mentioning again and again, that is because this zone is very important. Okay, if this zone gets taken out on the upside, I'll be very, very confident that all this oversold readings will eventually resolve on the upside, and we might end up probably much, much, much higher levels than even the previous high. But for that we need to see how it unfolds, and the condition to that is that this support level should be held. Sometimes in panic, what may happen is that this range may break on the downside. It might lead to a panic, but very quickly it might come back. Okay, so even if this zone is broken, I'll be watchful for day or two. Just like you can see over here, the 40-day broke over here, but the next day it came back and it started rising higher, right? So if at all the breakdowns are gonna be false one, then the important levels that are broken, okay, if those don't get reclaimed, like you see over here, 40-day was very important to us. When it started sustaining below the 40-day, I mean, that's where this was leading to some nervousness. And that is why I was repeatedly mentioning that 40-day needs to break, or this channel needs to break. That's where we can expect a new move, else it might be a pullback and then a decline. So yes, I mean, that is what I'll be watching out for. View on small cap index, Sunny, I don't know if you probably joined late, but I had discussed about this. So for small cap, the way I'm thinking about this is that uh, many of the stocks, or basically many of the indexes, are almost there to hitting the 20-week average. Okay, you take it small cap, mid cap, Nifty 500, Nifty. In fact, Nifty 50 is the one which is very close to hitting that. Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay, Nifty index is very close to hitting its 20-week average and its important support. I mean, almost all the index are having a very similar setup, where they are coming back to the 20 week, and basically, there are some important that they have made over there. So almost for everyone, that is the setup. So that's what I'll be looking out for in the next couple of days, whether the 20 week holds or no, and whether we get some revival or no. Because if you see all the sentiment indicators, they are sort of at a depressed level only. And in some pullbacks we are getting some up move over here, but those are not sustaining. Okay, even if you see the OIPCR, I have mentioned this many times, these are all at sort of oversold zone. Usually they don't you know sustain at lower levels. At least थोड़ा बहुत bounce तो आ जाता है, जिससे all this oversold readings get relieved. So that is what the watching point is. Well, a pullback to expect the least, and whether those pullback does it translate into a trend reversal or no. So these are the two three things that I'll be watching out for. How much FI can short index maximum? So good question. If you see the data, I mean this. So the record shorting had happened basically in March of 2025. Okay. So at March of 2025, so never we have seen the FIs being this short. Now, does it mean that they know something and can we fall? I don't know. I'm sort of relying on the price action because their important support levels are still held. So you can see over here also that important support zone was somewhere around 21,200, 300. So over here also, it went to almost 21,700, but then we ended up getting this rise. So think of it this way: this was a medium term setup, right? Where we had multiple lows over here. Now something is very much happening over here that is on a very smaller level, but despite that the positioning is very bearish, right? So I don't know. I mean, how short they can go? They can go anywhere. I mean, there is no level as such. But in the past, we have seen that usually it is around 1 lakh 10 15,000 contract or so. But this was breached and they shorted almost around 2 lakh contracts, and now they are at 168. So can they again go back to 168? I mean, 2 lakh, yes, possibly. But that's when I see the long percentage, in long percentage terms, they're already at an oversold zone. I mean, this is the second lowest reading that we have it on record. So the first one was in March 2023, where it was 7.75, and now it is 8.42. So I don't know. I mean, how long will this last, or how much they can go? So that's where waiting for a trend reversal is the thing to watch out for. So yeah, I think we got good questions today, and there was a good discussion. So once again, that's it from my side. It's almost 11:45 today. So as I mentioned earlier as well, for next 2 3 days I won't be there, but from Monday onwards we can again, you all can again expect this session from Monday onwards, and yes, hopefully till then, we end up getting some clarity on the trend as well. Uh, so as I mentioned earlier, while the Nifty index might be grinding lower, even if you short it, it might not be easy to make money because there are pullbacks which are very sharp from time to time, and it will sort of scare you. So the ideal situation is that even if it has to fall further, it has to at least see a bounce back. That bounce back, we'll evaluate whether it is the start of new trend or just a pullback, and we'll navigate it from there. Okay. So thanks a lot for your time, and see you hopefully on Monday. Yeah. Till then, goodbye, and hope for the best that we end up, seeing some clear trend.